everyone. My name is Mubarik. I'm one of the international officers here at the University of York. I'm based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And my colleague Sharon, who's based out in California, is also one of the international officers. I'm joined by one of our academics, Ashley Lingle from archaeology, who will be talking about kind of the archaeology department and kind of what goes on there. And we've also got one of our student ambassadors in Elizabeth, who's also here as well. So she'll be able to field any questions that you may have. But without further ado, we will get started. So the University of York was founded in 1963. We have roughly about 22,000 students from over 150 different countries in the world. We are a Russell Group university, so we are one of the 24 research intensive universities in the UK, and we do some of our programs do really well, both in the UK and also globally. And we have alumni kind of scattered all over the world, and the US as well. So we've got a very large alumni network. Um, some of the things that we are good at, we're top 10 for research, and then also gold in kind of teaching excellence, and kind of where we sit is kind of in that middle, with Cambridge, Imperial, and Oxford in terms of being having top 10 research, and then also gold for teaching excellence. So that's kind of where we sit in terms of our research and teaching. We're slap bang, kind of almost in the middle of the UK. Really good links both into Scotland and London. We're roughly about 2 hours on the train from London, and then if you go another 2.5 hours north, you'll get to Edinburgh. So we're pretty well located in that capacity. We've got other major cities around us. So Newcastle's not far, and Manchester International Airport is our kind of closest international airport. But you've got kind of smaller regional airports in Leeds. So you are able to get into mainland Europe pretty easily and pretty cheaply. So it's pretty handy knowing that you've got really good rail connections and also transport connections to the rest of the world. So the city of York is very historic. It's got lots of Roman history as well as some Viking history as well. So it's all amalgamated into one beautiful kind of architecturally historical city. Um, and you can experience, the city in many ways. And we do have the the longest city walls, Roman walls in the UK. So you are able to kind of go up there and walk parts of the wall. We've got the really small, narrow cobbled streets that date back to the 14th century. York Minster is one of the largest medieval Gothic cathedrals north of the Alps, and that takes is very prominent on the city's skyline. And again, it's a naturally beautiful building. York itself is one of the most welcoming cities, very friendly, and also a very safe city in England. Um, the train station, as I said, is a one of the largest hubs in the UK on the railway network. So lots of different links. Our campus is spread across two sites within one kind of larger campus. So we've got Campus West and Campus East. Campus West is the older part of the campus, as you could say, with kind of lots of buildings that are built in the 60s, as you can see, and that's kind of the bottom row of images there. And then the top is Campus East, which is newer and kind of more modern style of building. Between the two, they are roughly about 15-20 minute walk between the two sites, or a short cycle. There is a inter-campus shuttle bus that connects the two campuses as well, and that same bus will also take you further into the city centre as well. But that in itself is roughly another 25 to 30 minute walk, depending on how fast you walk. The campus has all the amenities that students would need, from a local convenience store to kind of your gym and sports facilities and so on. The campus has got two very large lakes, and with that, you also get a lot of birds and geese and swan that are always on campus. So it's a nice, tranquil, scenic campus that you can just kind of find a bench and just enjoy lunch or read a book or anything that you want to do. Our accommodation, we are very, very unique. There are only a handful of, a few universities, I should say, in the UK that have a collegiate system. We are one of them. So we have 11 colleges, and they are also your accommodation. So you get to have your own kind of room and kind of pick your college, and that's the college that you are a part of. Our student life is also very vibrant as well. We have over 200 different societies and over 65 different sports clubs to choose from. So whether that is hummus or you want to play netball or basketball, whatever that might be, they will be something for you. But I'm going to hand over to Ashley to talk about archaeology. But if you've got any questions, you can always reach out to me and our kind of North America inbox as well. So I'm going to hand over to Ashley.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mubarak. That was a great introduction to the city. Hopefully everyone's got a flavor just why York is so cool. From there, I'm going to pick up on why archaeology at York is kind of the perfect place to come study it, and just the breadth of scope that we offer through our postgraduate program. So I'm going to talk to you from a couple different hats today. So I am my department's postgraduate admissions tutor. So that kind of general scope to talk about our programs, but then also my passion for conservation. And that's one of the programs that we have a real strength in, both in terms of kind of built heritage, but also kind of broader international conservation studies. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my research and teaching in that aspect as well. Let's see, can we... Nope, I think we're going to have to swap over the presentation real quick. So Mubarak, if you would stop sharing your screen, and I will start sharing mine. Let's see if we can get this going in Teams. All right, there we go. Should be off and running now. No? Okay, yep, we're good. Brilliant. So what's it like? We are one of the top ranked institutions in the US, or sorry, in the UK. Oh, my video is not playing. There we go. And really well recognized across the world. That's partially due to our great research standing, but also kind of the quality of teaching offer. And these things truly go hand in hand as we get our students really kind of involved, particularly at master's level, in kind of contributing to research, getting those independent study skills, and thinking about what kind of a difference in sector practice looks like. There's a lot of really great cutting edge research that happens both in kind of our period specific programs, but also kind of industry leaders in things like digital archaeology, world heritage, conservation, etc. We've got great facilities. We've just had a big move onto campus, so leaving our city center home behind into some really great facilities with lots of new equipment and ways to get kind of involved in that research that you're able to kind of make real contributions with. We've got our kind of core areas that we're really proud of, and that goes from everything from kind of prehistory to heritage futures. So strengths in world heritage, museums, conservation, digital archaeology, things like archaeological sciences, so biomolecular archaeology, paleo diet, osteology, archaeobotany, and even experimental archaeology. So how we learn crafting practices from the past by making them ourselves. Our period specific programs are very broad. So everything from kind of prehistoric Europe all the way through kind of more contemporary periods, and as well as the periods that relate to York themselves, so Roman, medieval, historical, etc., and then strengths in other regions of the world like Africa. In terms of our postgraduate top courses, we have 24 different master's programs because we really want these to be about your interests as you pursue them, and to be a reflection of your kind of career aspirations, whether that's research-based and going on to sort of PhD and further work in academia, or working in the sector, if that's doing cultural heritage management, working in CRM, or any of these other related disciplines in the historic environment, etc. There's lots of different ways to be involved, and we want this to be about your passions. So most of these programs will have your sort of core module components in order to kind of reflect that as a discipline, but then there'll be some optionality where you're able to kind of pick across the portfolio and get involved with kind of some of the different aspects of that. So again, we've got some of our archaeological and archaeological science programs, our different period specialisms, as well as our heritage portfolio. We also share a couple of different programs with the Department of Environment and Geography, and these really focus around kind of sustainability. So again, learning from past environments, what does that look like for kind of sector futures? How do we kind of rationalize these different understandings and different knowledges of the past? So it's a really exciting way to kind of think about how the past can contribute to the future. And there's a lot of that built across the programs, particularly as these are all built with industry partners. And so there's a lot of that kind of work-based learning that's kind of fundamentally core into how all of these programs are designed. Here's a sample of some of the semester one modules. I'm not going to read the whole list because there's quite a few, but you can see there's a lot of variety offered, and a lot of kind of different ways that you can sort of think about the past depending on your interests. Again, I have these broadly grouped by kind of archaeology and archaeological sciences, things around heritage and cultural resource management, and then different aspects of period-specific interests. So there's, again, a variety, and we want you to kind of see these things that you have excitement about. Where do you feel that spark is, that interest for you? Are these things that you're interested because that's the program you're in, or is it something that you have other passions around and you might want to pursue also in the context of a dissertation or things like that? Again, in semester two, there's a real variety. One thing that we're really proud of is our curated placement module. So this is core amongst a number of programs, but also optional in some as well. So that's your chance to kind of work within sector with a partner. We sort of have a great list of organizations that we work with, English Heritage, Historic England, a number of the great heritage organizations we have in York. And students are able to kind of get that real world kind of firsthand experience. What's different about the way we deliver it is that it's part of your taught component. So it's not sort of a chucked add-on in the summer when you're already stressed about dissertation. We've worked this into kind of a teaching component. So particularly if you're an international student trying to also work and do your 20 hours of kind of income-based work that you can do in addition to your studying, this doesn't then compete with that. So it means it's a little bit more of a feasible way for people to kind of get involved with that. We've got some new modules up and coming, things like collections care. We had our first iteration of archaeology and AI run this year, which was hugely popular, and just keeping that kind of zeitgeist of what's happening in sector and making sure that students are kind of aware and able to integrate that into their educational experience. When it comes to dissertation, after you've kind of completed your 6 modules, there's a few different dissertation styles that we have. It's more traditional kind of big 80 credit dissertation where you're sort of really focusing on research, and that will start from the spring semester forward, as well as the journal style one. So for people who are really interested in publishing and doing things like that, this is your chance to start honing that practice and that skill of starting to write for journals and presenting your research. For those that do the curated placement, you won't have quite as long to do your dissertation. It's only 3 months then. So we have a shorter 60 credit dissertation, and that's only 8,000 words, which seems like quite short for a dissertation, but actually it's quite difficult to say everything you need to in a dissertation. So it's a little bit of a different skill, particularly for those who are developing kind of professional portfolios within sector, and how you kind of deliver that more professional presentation brief as part of that. So there's kind of different offerings and approaches that are built into the different programs depending on, you know, what is appropriate for that pathway, what are you expected to do in sector, and what does that look like? So again, balancing that kind of career-based interest, the research-based interests with your educational experience. We have a number of phenomenal partners that we work with. This is just a very small snapshot of it. So again, ones in York, like the Museums Trust, the York Conservation Trust, the York Civic Trust, but then ones that are kind of national. So English Heritage, Historic England, the Science Museum Group. We have the Railway Railway Museum up in York, which is, if anybody's into railway heritage, very like the coolest place. You can see all types of kind of the development of the railway industries. We do a lot with the National Trust, as well as the Council for British Archaeology, who also happen to be based in York. So if you're into archaeology, there's so many great organizations that we can sort of help pair you with, and again, get you sort of in that trajectory of that career progression that you're hopefully interested in as you study for a master's. And it's, I think, to reiterate that York is really at the kind of heart of archaeology. We've got lots of great updated news pages. There's been so much going on in the department over the next year, so if you're, or over the last year, excuse me. So if you're interested, please scan and check it out. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or on YouTube. We've got lots of channels from both kind of staff and student experience stories. You can see some more of my colleagues and the cool things that they've been up to, and some of the great student research that we've been highlighting as well. So there's lots going on. We have some amazing festivals every year. We have a Viking festival, and the city is flooded with people in historic reenactment dress, as well as a Viking festival. They set up in museum gardens and have a whole Viking camp for several days. You can watch different legions present themselves and drill. So there's lots of neat stuff, really cool public lectures, and just the kind of the celebration that the city really embodies. So I'm going to steal the show for just a second to really focus on this idea of kind of conservation and thinking about its role in heritage. As somebody who didn't know what conservation was when they finished their undergraduate degree in archaeology and kind of found it later, I'm very much an advocate of kind of exploring that with folks as much as possible. So conservation is this sort of way in which we do things like preserve the past, or kind of help to create the past through looking at ways that we can facilitate people using it. And that could be enjoyment, it could be sort of supporting researchers researching it, but it's this very cool intersection of anthropology, archaeology, and a little bit of science, and a little bit of craft practice too. And so you kind of use your understanding to contribute to what is ultimately this kind of cool cultural process, and how we kind of make decisions and support strategies in people being able to enjoy the past. And so it's this really neat intersection of a lot of things that my colleagues work on at York. We've got over kind of 40 academic staff, and I'd say I get to have really cool conversations with all of them about what they do and the ways in which you know, conservation can potentially contribute to a lot of that. There's different types of conservation, just like there's kind of different types of archaeology and heritage practices. So there's kind of these generalized terms around preservation and restoration. All of these kind of speak to different ways that we sort of stabilize and repair artifacts, buildings, artworks, around kind of particularly aspects of things like what we can considered to be integrity and authenticity, and how that kind of works in terms of sustaining value within the historic environment. There's different aspects of science and analysis, so different techniques in terms of understanding things like composition, materiality, and the types of materials we can apply to heritage to help extend their lifetime. Preventative conservation has become more and more sort of the current investment in the field, and where there's a lot of interest. So this isn't necessarily sort of direct intervention on materials, but rather it's using the context of what's happening around a place or an object to better understand how to extend that lifetime, how to kind of control those different elements, and help kind of give it its best chance beyond doing interventive work. A big part of this is outreach, so it's about engagement and education and collaboration. So whether that's conservator to archaeologist, conservator to curator, or doing different kind of public events, and kind of communicating what sort of ethical practice and good heritage management looks like. It's that sort of like voice of assurance as people sort of want things looked after. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Echemono story. It's probably a meme that you've seen online at various points of somebody who swore that they were sort of a licensed conservator who did a bit of a botched job. But then this very bizarre painting took on a life of its own, and now it has its own kind of social identity and everything. So it's a bit of a weird cycle. But every time something like that happens, there's always this cry of like, oh, why isn't this regulated? Why isn't this a profession that has more grounding? It absolutely does, but that doesn't prevent people from kind of taking license and free will. So it's just to kind of give, assurances. So like, for instance, I'm accredited by a few different organizations in terms of my own practice, and ways in which that we can offer those types of insurances as heritage professionals. We've got all kinds of cool different toolkits we use, from logging different kinds of data using 3D technology, all kinds of different small tools. I do a lot of primarily archaeological conservation work, so I've got a very weird toolkit from over the years of working with all of these different ways to carefully excavate incredibly fragile materials, doing things like uncovering Neolithic wall paintings, etc. We use other things like X-rays or chemicals to understand coins or different metal components from archaeological sites. We do things like scanning electron microscopy to understand that compositional analysis. I think the video stopped playing. I do a lot of earth building in my work in particular. So we've got cement mixers mixing up earth, and large scale production of mud bricks and things like that, to look at kind of the use of traditional practices in looking after heritage buildings. Other things like using polymers and different types of glues as we understand different materials, and then just different ways of looking at things. So is it under a microscope? Is it through doing a 3D model? All of these different ways in which we can visualize and understand. These are all kind of aspects of a conservator's toolkit and ways in which we kind of deliver our practice. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the cool projects that I've done with students in the last few years. So part of my research really focuses on how we understand climate change in a heritage context and how we use that in conservation. So a little bit about that kind of preventative conservation lens that I was discussing. So a project I did in the last couple of years was in York with a great couple of students from the Conservation of Historic Buildings Masters. So the building you can see on the left side of the screen there, that is 60 Goodrem Farm Gate. It's a very neat building in the city. So part of it dates back to the 14th century, and then there were later renovations in the 18th century, 19th century, and 20th centuries. So it has this very mixed history of architectural styles, but materials. Half the half the building is now built in brick. Half of it is timber framed. And so there's all kinds of different microclimates inside the building. It sat vacant for several years, and the York Conservation Trust took it over. But before they did anything to it, they really wanted to understand what the inside of the environment was like. So they were at this kind of crossroads of, do we gut this whole building and put in underfloor heating, double glazed windows? Do we kind of reline the walls? Or can we take a more minimalist approach? Does it just need better air circulation, better heating systems? What is the kind of threshold for the works that we need? And so I went in, we designed an environmental monitoring program. So we put in some data loggers looking at temperature and relative humidity and stuck them in all kinds of different parts of the building. So underneath the floorboards, on the 3 different levels, and even in the attic space, to try and get a sense of the building's overall performance. We did that for about a year. And after that, we kind of wrote up a report and some kind of key reflections, and looking at sort of where the building was performing well under what kind of weather conditions, and where, yeah, there were some substantive issues. And the benchmark that we use around that is just understanding human comfort in a building, right? So it's one thing to say, oh, the materials in the building are fine. It doesn't matter that it's freezing outside. Everything inside seems okay from a materials point of view, but that doesn't mean that the person in there is going to be comfortable running a shop or living in the flat or whatever it is. So kind of benchmarking that against, would somebody be comfortable in that space in a given time of year. So it was kind of doing a little bit of comparative work between the data we collected and during kind of different times, whether or not that would be suitable. And so we did some kind of back and forth around that. We published a kind of great summary of our findings there. If you want to check it out, please scan. So from that, we were able to kind of recommend that actually a minimalist approach was fine. The chimneys had been enclosed in the building, and so there was very little air circulation. That stagnant air actually was a majority of the problem in terms of kind of keeping that damp in. So, opening some windows here and there as the weather permitted, getting some sort of local heat sources for the people in the shop, or again, by contrast, in the summer, some fans. So again, it's more about kind of moving the air through the building. Yes, they kind of replastered some areas and did some structural repairs, but those were mostly around safety rather than trying to modify the environment. So the idea of putting an HVAC in kind of went to the wayside. They did an upgraded kind of heating system with radiators, but that meant that they kind of had a substantive cost savings as they did that, but they had the data to back it up. And so it was kind of an informed choice as opposed to the very expensive interventions that they were sort of initially looking at. So that was kind of one building that we've looked at. Obviously, there's lots in York, and it's something we're kind of expanding in terms of what we kind of deliver again with students. So it's an opportunity for students to kind of contribute to that research and those kind of underpinning discussions of what's happening in the city. Another project I've been working on for a while is in Vestomagor, which is in Hungary. It's an archaeological project that I co-direct with some wonderful colleagues. Here again, we've been looking at different types of interventions. So this is a bit of a mix of that preventative, looking at temperature, relative humidity, but in this case also soil moisture, because we have some sections of the site that are still interred. So we've got a few kind of building spaces. The site starts in the Neolithic and goes all the way up to the Bronze Age. So there's a lot of stories to tell within this kind of very compact archaeological scape. And we needed to figure out how to kind of sustain the environment before we did too much further excavation work. So what we did is we looked to actually the agricultural sector. So a little bit of a kind of creativity along with our data science nerdism. But this was a chance to understand how the soil behavior was impacted by the external environment. So as temperature or relative humidity goes up in this archaeological shelter, I should say there's a concrete dome over the site. What did that mean for everything that was still in the soil? And so these probes helped us to look at shifts in the external environment. You can see that kind of model of kind of semi-dome shapes that look a little bit like eyes. The closer they are to that kind of zero line in the middle means the kind of more influence that the external environment has. And so we found that after about kind of 40 centimeters into the section, we get this nice kind of relative stability going on. And so we kind of have a sense now as we sort of excavate the materials, as we kind of work within the sections where stability kind of falls within those parameters. That also gives us a really great benchmark for doing, in this instance, HVAC modifications to the shelter and thinking about what those temperature points need to be, what those relative humidity points need to be so that we can run it sustainably and not over industrialize the environment in there. So we've been able to kind of quite creatively engineer a new style of HVAC system that will go on the top of the trench to kind of slow that decay and help safeguard this site for the future. Again, if you want to read more about that, please scan the QR code there. And I think something to kind of highlight within that is this idea that with conservation, as with any of these kind of archaeological disciplines and using the past, none of them are absolutely finite, right? So there's always this kind of little bit of interpretation or give and take. With conservation in particular, it's sort of accepting that you're never going to preserve something forever and always. It does have a finite span, and some of those things are a bit shorter than others. So it's really about kind of finding that point of how to get the most out of them. In this case, it's kind of a standing bit of archaeology for people to come see and engage with the past. So how do we make sure that they're getting that maximum enjoyment and knowledge and experience from all of that great sense of well-being and connectivity we get from engaging with the past and archaeology, and looking to ways in which we can sort of embed that into not just what we do as practitioners, but how other people sort of work and kind of play in the past as well. So all of that kind of goes into these ideas of understanding the materiality, but also what I was saying before around kind of collaboration, decision-making, things like that. So this environmental work is just kind of a very small piece of these wider negotiations and puzzles in terms of what we're doing with the past, how we ensure that people kind of get the most out of it, and that what we're doing is kind of being delivered in an ethically and sustainable way. So hopefully with that, we've got a little time for kind of questions. Please feel free to, let me know your interest in archaeology. I'm more than happy to kind of pick up on some of these aspects as well as for some of the other programs that I talked about. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much there, Ashley. I'm just going to invite Elizabeth up to kind of go through what she does. So Elizabeth, if you want to just kind of go through what you currently do.
Yeah, I'm Elizabeth. I'm a student ambassador, but I'm currently doing a program as part of the Department of Archaeology. So a lot of what was talked about is stuff I've kind of experienced as a student. My focus has been I'm doing an MA in museum studies. So I've done a 60 credit, I'm working on a 60 credit dissertation, did 2 semesters. And so I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have about that program in particular. But yeah, York has really been kind of an amazing experience. You really do learn about and work with the city and build on its rich history. And that's been one of the most exciting parts of just living here, studying here. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But yeah.
Elizabeth, would you say what kind of brought you to York in the first place?
Yeah, I think I studied archaeology and classics in my undergrad, and so I knew I wanted to study in the UK, and I was really interested in kind of continuing that um, study of history. And so I was looking at like places that have really rich layers of history, and looking at York. I mean, it has Roman history, it has Viking history. There's just so much to do here. For museum studies in particular, York is an incredible place. There are over 10 museums within York that just are doing really innovative things and approaches to museums. And so that was another big draw for me, was just the opportunity to look at what I'm studying in the real world and kind of experience it within the city. Some other reasons were I kind of attended a webinar sort of like this, and one of the professors, Dab Smith, was talking about building conservation and just his passion for kind of and his approach to telling the life of a building and how to create that story was so compelling. And I ended up taking a class with him, and it was really incredible. And it wasn't kind of an area of conservation and heritage that I had encountered. Especially back in the US and Canada, where I did my undergrad in Canada, a lot of the stuff and ancient history that I was studying was kind of abstract, or, like it was studying it, but not being able to go up to a building that's right outside your classroom and kind of look at the layers of history and say, this was, a 14th century aspect, and look at how the architecture is developed. So I think really just having that here, being able to interact with that and all those opportunities for getting out into the city, getting out into other parts of England, were all major draws for my coming to York. So.
Amazing, thanks. Do we have does anybody, please feel free to use the chat if you don't want to kind of ask questions, but we're sort of here if there are any specifics you'd like us to pick up on. I think to add to, so probably tell by the accent, I am not British. I'm originally from California. I've been in the UK now for a long time, about 15 years, and I've been in the department here in York for the last 4 years. And I have to say, it's just, it's an incredible sort of department to be in. We've got such a great student community. It makes sort of the teaching component of my job a real joy. And part of that is this really great kind of North American cohort that we get across all of our different groups every year, in addition to kind of the other variety of kind of countries, which will vary substantively year on year. But it's nice because you get this real sort of mix of ideas and ideologies and perspectives on the past as part of that. There's actually quite a few kind of international colleagues we have in the department, but sort of another group again from the US in particular. So there's kind of lots of ways in which some of your lecturers might feel quite familiar in that way. But yeah, it's a very vibrant community, and hopefully you've got a sense of that today. Do we have anything yet? Nope. Mubarak, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
No, I think everything you covered very nicely. And Elizabeth as well, talking about her background and route to York. So I think everything's good. Stephanie?
Lovely. Well, thank you guys so much for such a fantastic presentation. It was a pleasure. York is such a beautiful part of the UK, and it was such a pleasure hearing about it through an architectural lens because the beauty of the buildings is what makes it so special. And the Shambles are probably one of the best places that you'll ever visit. I'm just going to take a quick step back because I think we've had a question in the chat box, and I don't want to take that time. So I'll leave that one with you guys.
Excellent, thanks.
Excellent. Elizabeth, this is a question for you. Could you speak, could all of us speak to the collegiate structure at York and specifically your experience, Elizabeth? So Elizabeth, we'll start with you because I think that's the most important one.
Sure. I mean, I think 10 of the colleges are for undergrads, and then there's one specifically, Wentworth. And every student, regardless of whether you live on campus, off campus, is a part of one of these colleges. If you're a postgrad, you're part of Wentworth. And so I live off campus actually, but I still feel kind of the Wentworth community, and I'm still able to access a lot of the Wentworth kind of student spaces on campus. There's a Wentworth common room where you can go and sit and spend time with friends, and there are screens that you can use. So there are facilities that you can access. So I'd say in terms of living on campus, maybe my experience is quite limited in terms of experiencing the collegiate structure. But I've definitely found it was like fun. I went the first day to the Wentworth space and picked up my little pin. So you still feel like there's an aspect of community that you're automatically a part of that makes it really, you feel supported upon kind of arrival. So that's a little bit of my experience, but.
Yeah, the collegiate system is specifically there to kind of give you that community on campus, as Elizabeth mentioned. Whether you're on campus or not, you're still part of that. And it is kind of that kind of each college, whether a postgrad, undergrad, or A level, they're going to run their own social activities for all students. And once you're part of that community, you are part of that community. Throughout your time at York and almost beyond as well. So
I think that's something that York does really well, is kind of setting up different community structures for students. So you've got your sort of college structure, which is great because there's that social component that goes with it. In terms of within the department, you get an academic supervisor, so somebody who checks in with you about how things are progressing. That can be both in terms of your studies or career aspirations, etc. With dissertation, you have somebody to help kind of support you through that as well. Yeah, you've got these kind of different layers of academic support. We've got a really great well-being team too. So there's kind of different ways that you can sort of either reach out, build your own community, or get help if you need kind of some support along the way as well. But all of that, I think, is delivered particularly well in the York structure.
Does my mic work now?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you all. I was just on the NAFA UK study tour, so I went to all these universities and kind of better understood the collegiate structure, but I recognize that others don't know it. I did visit York just on my personal time and loved it. So for anyone on the call The campus was absolutely beautiful, and York itself definitely very, very friendly. A follow-up question on the kind of the graduate college. Are most graduate students within that graduate college then? Like, is that the majority of students who enroll go into the graduate? Okay, that makes sense. Awesome. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, like Elizabeth was saying, they don't necessarily all live there. There's lots of housing variety across York, but they're all a part of that. That is kind of their sort of go-to community, as it were.
And outside of archaeology itself, a lot of the other faculties and departments are kind of located within the different colleges. So even though you might be living in Wentworth, a part of Wentworth College, your department might be based in Derwent or one of the other colleges. So you still get to spend time with all the other colleges as well.
That was a really great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara. Any other questions?
All right. All right. Well, I think it looks like everyone is fully satiated on the University of York. Thank you guys so much for a fantastic presentation. It's really been an absolute joy to learn more about the institution, and we appreciate you guys taking time to speak with the wonderful NAFA and scholar, or NAFA and students that have, NAFA advisors and students who have assembled to be part of today's presentation. We look forward to posting this material on the website in due course and look forward to catching up with everyone at future Marshall Mondays. There is still plenty of time to register for our next session next week, so do keep an eye out on our website. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much to the University of York. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today. All the best. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all.